Welcome to Between the Bytes by Executech, where we discuss technology news and updates. I am joined today by Derek Parkinson and special guest Jeff Palazzo. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great today, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Jeff, of course, has been on the podcast before, but it's been a few months, so we're glad to have him back. Jeff is our VP of Cloud Services. And if it's any clue, we're actually talking about something not cybersecurity today. There's probably something cyber in the news, but it's been kind of quiet, knock on wood. So we want to talk about something else technology, and something very interesting in the news, all about Microsoft. Today we want to talk about Windows 365, and I think to the layperson, they just say another 365. Isn't that what Office already is? Isn't it all 365? So let's dive right in. And Jeff, tell us, what the heck is Windows 365? How is it different from Microsoft 365 or Office 365, which isn't really even a thing anymore? Break us through the 365s.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I checked this morning to make sure nothing else had changed in the naming conventions, and we're good to go, which is really good news. So, yeah, Windows 365 is actually a 20 represents 24 new SKUs that are subscription services for what Microsoft is calling cloud PCs. So cloud PC, if you think about it, is a new market segment per Microsoft's marketing machine, and that the new segment is really DVI or DAS, if you would, desktop as a service. That is on a subscription basis, and it's been made to be as easy to provision as a new Microsoft 365 license. You basically can go to a page, you click on, hey, give me this 4 CPU, 16 gigabit RAM cloud PC, and off you go with your new Windows 365 PC. See how I mixed all those in there and you still don't know what's going on with the naming convention? Hey, we don't either. No, seriously, it is a little bit confusing. Remember, cloud PC is the product genre, if you would. Windows 365 is the nomenclature for the suite of 24 different desktops in the cloud. And you'll hear other terminology as we talk today. We probably should provide somebody with an entire page full of acronyms and names just so we can keep track. Derek's laughing. Derek's like, yeah, I've been here before. I know Microsoft.
A
Yeah.
Microsoft only glossary. That might be what we need
Yes.
on the blog.
Yeah.
The ultimate guide to Microsoft terminology.
Dude, that's
I
why we
like
have
it.
jobs in the cloud. It's because whatever you've learned yesterday, it's probably been denigrated to something less, and now today it's a whole new world. It's great. It keeps us on our toes.
Absolutely. To summarize, though, and again, if there's any confusion for our audience, I gotta get this right in my head. Microsoft 365 is the bundle of products that we're all familiar with: Outlook, Excel, Word, a bunch of others that are really cool that we're not going into today. They deserve all this time and attention, but it's that subscription bundle of those apps and products. Great, awesome.
Good. You got number one absolutely correct. Ding ding ding. 100%. Good job.
Okay, Windows 365, and we're probably going to have to break this down because I still have trouble wrapping my head around what this means. Is a subscription service
Hmm.
or a virtual desktop?
Yes, sir.
And so, on a practical level, I'm assuming this is not really for end users, or would it be? But on a practical level, what would it look like for me, an end user, to all of a sudden use a virtual desktop or a cloud PC, as you've called it?
It'll be great, Gary. It'll just be great. So a cloud PC, one of the Windows 365 SKUs, can be deployed a couple different ways. There are two flavors. I might as well get into this now. There are two flavors of Windows 365. There's a business edition and there is an enterprise edition. Now, the business edition, and you're familiar with this from the Microsoft 365 world, the business SKUs of Microsoft 365, Microsoft 365 Business, Basic, Standard, and Premium, are all aligned with smaller organizations, which for specifically 300 seats or less. The Windows 365 Business Edition SKUs align with that. You cannot buy more than 300 of those in Business Edition for one organization. So that's Business Edition. The Enterprise Edition is for companies that are larger than 300 seats, but they're also for customers who need more flexibility in what it is that they're buying, and we can get into that. It's taken us a full month actually to grok what all the nuances are. So we want to share what we've learned here today as far as that goes. So you're asking what the experience is. Well, the experience could differ. If you're a Business Edition user, your experience, it might be that you're provisioning your own PC. It's not, the whole idea is to not require a deep level of expertise. In fact, it requires zero knowledge of desktop virtualization or VDI. Right? You don't need to know anything about VDI. You have no skill set. Great, you can go Business Edition and not have any concerns. All of that is obfuscated by Microsoft. So yeah, Business Edition it's a different kind of deal. It's really the no-brainer solution for clients who have who are born in the cloud, who don't have a domain controller on premise. They're using Office 365. They're using Workday or Salesforce or other SaaS solutions. And they're running their business on that. They may have QuickBooks in the cloud. All their back office could be running in the cloud. Business Edition is a really good fit for those folks. If you have an established on-premise infrastructure with line of business apps that are on servers in your closet, you may have a file server, you may have your back office all on physical servers or virtualized servers in a colo or on premise. For those folks, you really need to look at actually two options: either the Enterprise Windows 365 edition or Azure Virtual Desktop, which we've been supporting since it came out in version 1.0 a couple of years now.
So, say I'm in the first category. We're a smaller business. Maybe even we'll take the example of Executech itself. What's the use case? What's the scenario where I would get I guess you call it a license for Windows 365? And what does that look like for me as an end user?
Yeah, there's a web page to go to. I think it's windows365.com, if I remember correctly. And you would provision your PC. You basically select what it is that you want, and off you go. You provide your billing information, and you're up and running in about between 30 and 60 minutes. That will be provisioned for you. You'll get an email saying, hey, here's where you go log in, and now you have access to the world. You'll have Windows 10 or later on this year, Windows 11 on that desktop as a default. You can get, there are a number of, when you provision, you have a number of different options as far as the image that gets loaded onto that cloud PC. So for instance, if you're going to get maybe not the bottom, the entry level, but you're going to be up a couple of rungs where you can actually support Teams video and audio and sharing, desktop sharing, you're going to want an image that will support that. So you might get the Windows 10 with Teams AV optimization. I don't want to set the expectation with our audience that you don't have to have any IT knowledge whatsoever to go do this. That is a bit misleading to think that you just really buy it as easily as going online and purchasing Microsoft 365. There are more questions that need to be answered here as you're doing your provisioning.
What are the hardware requirements? So this is basically meaning, I can have all the advantages, all the features of a top of the line PC and the theoretical hardware that would go behind that without actually literally having the hardware to support it. But I have to be on some kind of device. What kind of device can I use to get to my virtual PC?
Great question. Again, the marketing messaging is that you can really use any device. And that is true. You literally can use, well, any x86 device that is running Mac OS, iOS, Android, Windows, or just has a browser. So you could have a Linux box and use the browser, or any of those devices. So what's not maybe obvious is that the functionality that you get with those devices will differ with the client that you're running. So if you're running the iOS client, for instance, you don't have universal print. That might be a problem for you. Although every device is supported, every functionality is not supported on every device with every client. So again, we really have to be careful. If we are consulting with one of our clients, we're going to bring this functionality to light. It's like, yeah, you can use all that stuff, but what are you going to use that end device to do? What is the end game here? What are you trying to accomplish? And we'll ask that series of questions that would uncover the functionality that's required. And then we might have the bad news like, no, you can't use your iPhone 10 to do what you want to do. Unfortunately, you might need the Mac OS to do that. You asked though, what hardware? So I just was really referencing operating systems up to this point. The hardware can really be bottom of the line. You could have, if you wanted all the functionality, you could go get a $300 laptop running Windows. As long as it's running Windows, you're going to get all the functionality. And yes, you can take that $300 laptop and connect to an 8 virtual CPU, 128 gigs of RAM machine in Azure and crunch numbers all day long, right? You could do some crazy stuff. Now, you can't do design work yet necessarily, because if your application requires a GPU, a graphics processing unit, you're not going to get the performance that you want. But those GPU-based Windows 365 desktops will be coming out. That's on the roadmap. So to answer your question, you can get all the performance in the world that you want by configuring or provisioning that, I should say, in the Windows 365 environment. And as your endpoint, you could have junk. So one of the beauties of this is clients who are facing huge operating system upgrades, maybe they've been dragging their feet, they still have Windows 7 and they have hundreds of laptops or desktops, they can avoid that, right? Because we don't care what's on the desktop. They can just go to the cloud. Same thing if they're looking at an endpoint refresh. So we've got a client here, as you know, I'm in the Sacramento area. We've got a client here that has to do a refresh, they think. They've had some disk drive failures. They've got laptops mostly. They need to do a 40 laptop refresh. And they're going, oh, okay, so $800 or $1,000 or whatever it is times 40. And they're going, oh my gosh, this is not something we really want to do. Well, don't do it. Just well, why don't we do this? Why don't we just download the client, provision a couple of cloud PCs for you? You pay a monthly fee. It'll be the same every month. It's predictable because that's the model here. It's a subscription. So you pay a set fee, you pay it every month. And if your endpoint dies, replace it with a $300 laptop. So it's a whole new ball game for folks who are facing laptop, desktop, or OS upgrades en masse. They can really avoid those big CapEx hits.
I can think of a few people that would fall right in line with. My dad is one of them. As a business owner, he's very generous and giving, but when it comes to purchasing technology, he is the cheapest man I've ever met, including laptops. And this is for a marketing agency. I had a laptop that he bought, and I think it may have cost $400. And once I started getting files and stuff on it and doing some work on it, I think it took less than 60 days for the hard drive to completely crash, and I had to replace the hard drive. So I can think of a pretty good market. There's a few different markets, obviously, but that's definitely one of them, of people that just don't want to bite the bullet when it comes to buying expensive computers. The other question along this line, the first thing that came to my mind when I was researching this was internet speeds. Does that have an effect if you buy the top of the line PC and you have, the $30 Linksys router that you're running off of? Is that going to just completely hamstring the performance?
That is a great question. I have a very unscientific answer for you. If your endpoint that you have today and your internet connection can support a YouTube video without any stuttering or pausing, or as long as that's smooth, you're good to go. That is the unscientific way to determine that answer to that question. It's if you think about it, all of the processing is being done in the cloud on that Windows 365 desktop cloud PC, excuse me, and that cloud PC is doing all the work, and all it's doing is sending you screen refreshes, and any downloads, possibly, if that is a requirement. But for the most part, it's keyboard input and mouse input going upstream to that cloud PC, and screen refreshes coming down.
Yeah, that makes sense. That is actually a very good way to put it. That puts it into perspective pretty quickly. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I didn't make that up. I stole that from someone online. Don't tell.
Steal and repurpose.
Repurpose. Yes, sir. Repurpose.
I'm curious, this obviously has been in the works for a long time, but it seems, it would have been even greater timing maybe last year, but the timing seems to align well with the big movement of work from home and remote work. Obviously, this is a huge facilitator of that. Again, you can send your employee home with a $300 laptop, and they can have the full functionality that they would have at their desktop that's, top of the line desktop for whatever reason, if that's what that employee needs. No worries there. Talk to us about security. Again, security has been a big concern for the work from home environment. People working off of their own devices and their own laptops on their home Wi-Fi without the protection of a firewall and so on. How does Windows 365 help with that? What are the security layers now that you're accessing it via the internet?
Right. So during the configuration of a cloud PC, the Windows 365 environment allows you to preclude taking screenshots, downloading data to that endpoint. It elevates your security posture because it's reducing your attack surface, right? So if you're pretty much, it's got a bubble around it, right? It's Microsoft security. And that cloud is actually in the same data centers as Microsoft 365. And just to go back for a moment to a breach that was popular a couple of months ago, where Exchange servers that were only the ones that were on-prem could be victims to that security breach. We didn't see that happen to Microsoft 365 or Exchange Online, right? Because the protection is much higher than what you could do to your own Exchange server, for instance. So think that when everything but that endpoint now is in that Microsoft bubble, they put $1 billion a year investment into security. They've got 3,500 full-time security professionals. They're compliant with everything regulation-wise. So they have really helped those work from home folks step up the security game. You're in a much better place than just either sending them home with their equipment that they had at the office, or using their own personal PCs or a new laptop that you bought for $300. So security wise, huge help.
Excellent. And that is kind of the number one concern. I want to pose a hypothetical scenario. In the unlikely and unfortunate incident where someone falls for a phishing scam, they're in Windows 365. They get an email, classic phishing email, whatever it may be. They click the link, they get the ransomware. Is ransomware deployed on that virtual PC and their hardware? If it's just on the virtual PC, is it self-contained in that it wouldn't spread to your neighbor, their virtual PC that's also in the same company network or company umbrella? I don't know the actual term. Is that making sense? Is that a relevant question?
It's a relevant question that I don't have an answer to.
Okay. Just don't get ransomware is the answer.
Don't get ransomware is the answer.
Quit trying to send the Prince of Mumbai your credit card information.
We can't fix the human element, right? If there's a lapse in judgment or a lack of education about ransomware, there's only so much, right, you can protect against. So I would say, again, not knowing the answer to that, the answer is always education. I would rather make that investment than to give any intruders the opportunity to come in through whichever device, wherever it exists, right?
This is also a little bit of a side question, but I am curious. Microsoft isn't the only name in cloud, but arguably they're the biggest name in cloud. This is the first I'm hearing about a viable cloud PC desktop as a service solution. Certainly others exist. Walk us briefly, Jeff. Maybe you don't need to talk about the specific alternatives, or do if you feel like it's necessary. But how does Windows 365 compare to what an alternative would be?
So yeah, there's in addition to being turnkey, we're looking at the fact that they own the entire stack, right? Who else owns the entire stack? So by bundling Windows, you don't have to go get licensing somewhere else, and you're also going to pay less. Not sure if you're aware, but there is a kind of a hybrid use benefit that's available that will reduce your cost on these Windows 365 cloud PCs. So if you have Windows on your current desktop, Windows 10 or Windows 11 when it comes out, on your current desktop or laptop, you'll get reduced cost. So there's a cost benefit from working with Microsoft because, hey, they own the software. You already invested in Windows 10. We're going to give you a pass and instead just have you pay for the hardware that we're using on your behalf.
Jeff, this has been a great discussion. We've had a lot of information. As you've mentioned, it's changing all the time. We've learned a ton over the past month, and there's still so much to learn. There's still so much coming out about this. And so, we could spend days on this if we really wanted to. But, to keep the podcast succinct and direct and informational for our audience, is there anything else that you think our audience ought to know about Windows 365?
Yeah, I would say that it's when it first came out, we were very excited to see another option. Now that we've had a month to look at it, I think we figured out kind of where it belongs, where the use cases are for Windows 365 Business, Windows 365 Enterprise, and Azure Virtual Desktop. The Azure Virtual Desktop is not going away. Windows 365 is built on top of Azure Virtual Desktop. Again, just obfuscated. You just don't see it. There's a place for each of those, and that's, I think, where hopefully our customers are going to leverage us to figure out the best solution for their use case or use cases.
Derek, any other questions or comments for Jeff?
I think the only other one that I had written down was, do you have any major or even minor concerns with the prospect of this new service that they're offering?
Because it's built on protocol is RDP, which has been around forever, so there's nothing new there. The hardware and the infrastructure is built on top of Azure Virtual Desktop. Again, proven technology, so not concerned about that. Looks like it is promise of easy deployment is being fulfilled, so I'm not too concerned there. Support is different for business and enterprise editions, and there is some concern there in that the business edition is not really manageable. You depend on Microsoft for rather than your MSP or your in-house IT folks to manage it. So there is a little concern there that people, when they purchase, aren't thinking about that. Other than that, I think there's really no concern about the technology. I think it's solid. It was well thought through. It's been in the works for a long time, and execution appears to be pretty good.
And available immediately.
Yeah, it became available on August 2nd. So today is August 26th. There will be on the roadmap different ways to buy it. And right now, actually in September, which is next week, will have access through the Cloud Solution Provider Program, which, as you know, is kind of where we do most of our business. So that will be available. There are other things on the roadmap that will help expand the use cases. So yeah, I mean, we're happy. We're happy with it. It's not maybe as life changing as some folks were hoping it would be. Microsoft again did a great job on the marketing side of building up anticipation for this by leaking certain things over months prior. It's an addition. It's another arrow in the quiver, right? It's another opportunity for us to solve business problems with technology. And it's a safe technology. So yeah, we're very comfortable taking this to market.
And great comment there to close out on, Jeff, is, as always, Executech, we're trying to solve problems with IT. Problems come in all shapes and sizes. IT comes in all shapes and sizes. And so if our audience, your listener, are curious about Windows 365, how it might apply to your organization, reach out. Jeff's got an amazing team of cloud engineers, architects, and all-around pros that can help you understand if it's a good fit, and assuming that it is, how to move forward, how to best apply it to your unique business. That's what we want to do. Of course, if you have questions, you can just reach out to us at executech.com. I think that's it. Thank you, Jeff. Great discussion. Again, great information. It's great to have you back and talk cloud, a little bit of a change of pace for us from all the cyber news we've been covering. So it's been kind of nice, actually. So thanks again for coming over.
I'm here to make your life interesting, guys. Okay, whatever I can do.
All right.
All right. Take care.
We'll see you later.
See you guys.